The call lasted exactly 22 seconds. That was all the time it took for a girl's voice to vanish into static. October 17th, 2003, Cedar Grove, Virginia. A small town where neighbors knew one another by name, where doors were left unlocked, and nothing ever seemed out of place. That illusion ended the night Lila Kincaid disappeared. The recording begins faintly. You hear the clatter of a car door, a quick intake of breath, and then a voice, Lila's, trembling, breaking as she speaks. "Hello? Someone's please, he's." Then a scream, garbled and sharp, and silence. 22 seconds. It was all investigators had. The call ended as abruptly as it began, and no one ever heard from her again. When police found her car just after dawn, it was still running. The headlights glared against the trees. Inside, her purse, her wallet, her keys in the ignition. But there was no sign of Lila. An officer leaned against the doorframe, scanning the passenger seat. Later, he recalled, "It wasn't what we found in that car that kept me awake at night. It was what we didn't find." Because one thing was missing. Lila's diary, the journal she was rarely seen without. To this day, it has never resurfaced. So who was Lila Kincaid? She was 17. A quiet girl, shy but bright. Friends remembered her as thoughtful, carrying a worn guitar she strummed during long afternoons. In old camcorder footage, she blows out candles on a birthday cake, her smile quick and fleeting. She was the type of teenager who drove late into the night, windows rolled down, music playing, claiming it helped her think. A friend, her voice catching years later, said simply, "She was the kind of person you expected to grow into something amazing. She had this light." And then she was gone. Victims become ghosts if we don't remember their lives, not just their deaths. That was always my rule. Because if we forget the life, we lose the truth. Police, desperate for answers, looked quickly to the people closest to her. The first was her ex-boyfriend, Mark Ellis. 17 years old, hot-tempered, the kind of kid who carried arguments out into parking lots. In taped interviews, he sat hunched over, shaking his head. "We argued, yeah," he muttered, "but I didn't hurt her. I loved her." Neighbors swore the couple had been volatile, but no one could place him near her car that night. Next was Charles Avery, Lila's neighbor, 54 years old. He lived alone, rarely seen in daylight. Avery told police he had noticed Lila's car parked near the train tracks, but claimed he hadn't gone near it. His alibi was thin, but not impossible. A man in his 60s later remembered seeing Avery watching from his porch, staring in the direction of the road where the car was discovered. And then there was the drifter. No one knew his real name. He drifted into Cedar Grove in early October, sleeping rough, hanging near the gas station. Police reports described him as evasive, defensive, and quick to anger when questioned. "People always look at me first," he spat during one interview. "I was just passing through." But he had no proof of where he'd been, no one to vouch for his movements. At this stage, detectives had 3 suspects, 3 loose threads. Which would you have pursued first? Her boyfriend, her neighbor, or the stranger who drifted into town the week she vanished? That choice, made in those first days, might have changed everything. Then came the box. It appeared on the desk of Police Chief Robert Mays one quiet morning. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a single object, a cassette tape. On its white label, scrawled in black ink, 2 words, "Play me." The chief hesitated before inserting it into a recorder. What emerged was a low, distorted male voice. The tape hissed. Then clearly, "Go to the old farmhouse. She's waiting." Officers followed the directions to a crumbling property at the edge of Cedar Grove, long abandoned. The farmhouse stood like a husk against the sky, its windows shattered. Inside, dust and cobwebs. And in the back room, illuminated by flashlight, a bulletin board. Tacked to it with rusted pins, photographs. Yearbook portraits, snapshots, driver's license photos. All young women. All missing. At the center, a picture of Lila. And among the others, a girl who wouldn't vanish until 10 years later. Which meant whoever assembled that board wasn't just reflecting the past. They were predicting the future. Years passed. The farmhouse was sealed. The case grew cold. Evidence boxes gathered dust. And then, 3 years later, a young detective replayed Lila's 911 call. Something caught his attention. Not her words, not the scream, but the noise beneath it. Investigators had dismissed it as static. But he recognized it, the long, mournful whistle of a freight train. That train only ran one stretch of track through Cedar Grove. And it didn't run anywhere near the spot where her car was found. which meant the car had been staged, planted to throw investigators off the trail. Back near the tracks, officers found a partial tire tread pressed into mud. It was old, faint, nearly erased by weather, but analysis matched it to a specific set of tires used on one kind of truck. A truck owned by the drifter. Slowly, the case turned. News broke in 2006. After 3 years, an arrest has been made in the disappearance of Lila Kincaid. Reporters crowded the courthouse. DNA from the trunk of Lila's car. Fibers of hair, unseen by the naked eye, tied the drifter directly to her. In the courtroom, his confession was flat, cold, unrepentant. She was just in the wrong place, he said. Wrong time. That's all. But was it? Because chance doesn't explain the other photographs pinned to that farmhouse wall. Chance doesn't explain why he carried directions written in someone else's hand. One reporter later reflected, he called it random, but nothing about that board was random. Someone else was out there, someone bigger than him, pulling strings. The jury sentenced him. Families wept in relief. But Cedar Grove never recovered. And neither did Lila's family, who were left with one haunting absence, her diary. The leather-bound journal she carried everywhere, the one she wrote in nightly, was never found. I close my notebook, just as I've done in every case. But I'll say it again, no one ever really disappears. Not entirely, because pieces remain. A voice on tape, a photograph on a wall, a missing diary that could still surface, pages waiting to speak for a girl who never had the chance. Next week, the Holloway twins, a disappearance that defied logic, with a twist no one saw coming.